Just very quickly, just for my benefit. So how many here are new to OpenStack this year? Cool, you're in the right room. How many are looking to deploy OpenStack in the next 6 months? Definitely the right room. How many here is just to heckle me? Yeah, just checking, just making sure. Right, so who am I? So I'm a technical consultant in Rackspace, based in the UK. I basically service the customers in the EMEA region. I basically help them with their OpenStack deployments, and that's from the architecting side of things through to help running applications on those OpenStack environments. And I dabble a little bit in the service delivery side of things. So if you've got any problems with your OpenStack clouds, and it's in the UK or around the EMEA region, at some point you probably speak to me. So I apologize in advance. So I've been using OpenStack for about 4.5 years. You'll know, well, you might know that OpenStack turns 5 next month. So I've been using OpenStack for quite a while. You know, from the early days where you typed Nova boot and you got some ASCII art back, also known as a stack trace. So yeah, I've been around for quite a while, and in that time, I've written a few books. So yeah, these are a couple of books that I've written, and but don't go out and buy them. Don't go out buying the cloud computing cookbooks. And I know I'm the world's worst salesman, but it's only because there's a new one coming out soon. So keep an eye out on that one. The Architecture Design Guide, I wrote that with what was it, about 11 or 12 other people. Maish, sitting in the front, is one of them. We were in a room for a week, basically tortured, and we had to write a book. And the outcome was the Architecture Design Guide. So that is a very, very good book that you should all read. So I better explain the title of my talk. So I gave this talk when I was in Vancouver a few weeks ago. So how many people went to Vancouver, fortunately? Cool. And I know Maish wasn't in my talk, so he's in for a surprise for this one. So that's good. It's only because I always use all the same jokes. So if you've seen the talk before, you would have been really bored. So. But anyway, because we're in Israel and it's really hot, this is what my snowman actually looks like. So, by the way, when I laugh, that's a cue for you to start laughing too. Just keep that one in mind. And of course, you know, I wouldn't be here, you know, if I didn't get my talk selected. So, so yeah, just if you ever want to, I know we're giving away a couple of free tickets, or you know, in a draw later on today for the Tokyo Summit. But if you really want a free ticket to the Tokyo Summit, come up with a really cool title for a talk and submit it, and maybe do some research. The other thing about the talk, I actually did this talk, like I said, in Vancouver, and I wasn't joking. I actually started off the talk doing Disney karaoke. I am not going to subject that to you today. I realized that a Korean karaoke is not my thing, so I'm just going to stick to what I know and just do awful Disney puns. So basically just go with it. And this is what happens when you start submitting talks for days like this and the summit after watching Frozen for about the 7th time. I know I should have let it go. Now you're catching on. Anyway, I want to talk about OpenStack. Tried to use this somewhere, but I just wasn't clever enough. So what is OpenStack? So what is it? So OpenStack is like OpenStack. Everything seems all rosy. Then halfway through, disaster strikes. Somebody breaks into a song, and I guarantee they weren't Canadians. Then after a perilous battle, your NetSec team finally understands Neutron. Cue to laugh. As OpenStack is make-believe, I want to give you 5 takeaways to get there with OpenStack. Number 1, it's important that people are present. Oh, hold on. Anybody see those DARPA videos of those robots? I guarantee that they're not going to take over the planet. So I guarantee that people do need to be present, but the right people need to be present when discussing your OpenStack deployments. How many people in the room have been involved in unsuccessful OpenStack deployments? So, I mean, this talk actually came about because I spend most of my time on the road speaking to lots of businesses, and I go into lots of offices and I sit down with all these people, all these techies of all different parts of the company, and they talk to me and say, look, okay, we've tried to do this. We tried to do this installation of OpenStack and it's not worked. And I dig deeper, and it turns out that, for example, developers weren't involved in the planning of their installation. So this is an environment that you were going to hand over to the developers. They were going to be the end users, and they turn around and say, look, no, this isn't good for us. So you've got to make sure the right people are in the room. And so it happens far too often. Designing an OpenStack environment is a two-way conversation. Requirements flow from all directions. Obviously from people writing the checks, but to the teams cabling, you know, the people racking the servers, and all the internal users, how they want to actually use that cloud. Do not be surprised if conversations you have around how to operate and install OpenStack may make you feel uncomfortable. The thought of developers having an ability to clone complete environments, or hell, even just create networks, can make grown NetSec engineers cry. I'm sorry, I always pick on NetSec. They're just such an easy target. Obviously, everybody blames the network. OpenStack in your organization will only be successful if you see it as an evolution of what you do today, of the processes you've got today. And you will change the rulebook. Education is vital here. Understanding what OpenStack is and what it isn't can make or break a project. I've sat in many, many pre-sales meetings where I've had to roll my sleeves up, do full-on whiteboard sessions, proper training sessions in front of all the techies in the room that will make our OpenStack training team proud. But if you don't like my scrolls, and to be fair, they actually are hideous. Attending sessions like you see today, attending sessions at the OpenStack summits are perfect. They'll set you up in good stead for your next installation of OpenStack. Number 2, the C word. We're all adults, right? We can use the C word whenever we want. Maybe this works better in English-speaking countries, but hey, I'm still going to go with it. But cloud is a 4-letter word. The word confuses the hell out of everyone, but brings meaning to everybody else. Don't forget, cloud hides complexity. It makes it somebody else's problem. The reason I'm bringing up this is simple. You are designing services in your data center that is complex by nature. The outcome of your project should be to hide this complexity and not eat the microphone. If people find it difficult to use, you may have to go back to the requirements again. And it goes back to step number 1 again, making sure that the right people are in the room. It's your job, though, to understand that complexity, or at least appreciate the complexity that OpenStack brings. OpenStack has a number of moving parts. So, it's like a car. Car is complex, and I'm no mechanic, but I appreciate the fact that I put petrol in, and that injects the fuel into the engine, and then things happen in the engine, and then my car goes forward. I have other features. I have CDs and all sorts in my car, and what I know, what I see, and how I treat that is my car. That's my cloud. OpenStack is no different. It's a suite of open source projects that in their own right are complex, and they're glued together with other open source projects and operate as my cloud to my end users. Do you need to know that Nova uses a message queue to determine what work to do? Of course you do. Do you need to know how RabbitMQ works under the hood? Not necessarily, but you definitely need a level of understanding to know how that works. But do the end users of the cloud need to know that RabbitMQ is being used? No. Do they need to know that there are 3 servers wrapped together in a Galera cluster? No. Do they need to know that the computes are not fault tolerant? Of course they do. When are you going to spring that one on them? Do they want to know what features are available in the API? Of course you do. Number 3. Be realistic, okay? So cloud answers all of IT's problems. Obviously it introduces some new ones. Oh, by the way, anybody notice the Disney reference in this slide? Just while we're on the theme. The font is Ariel, the Little Mermaid. No, yes. I like you lot. Sympathy votes. Right, so OpenStack has exploded in growth and interest. It encourages a wide and open development platform. It's fantastic. The list of vendors supporting OpenStack now, compared to 5 years ago, is unbelievable. But the thing is, the challenge now comes to the people who are coming into OpenStack to try and navigate that field. So this is a list of the common projects that are currently available in OpenStack. It's pretty immense. But it's like a shopping list for those heading to the out-of-town DIY store. You ever walk into a big, vast warehouse? Ceilings up to the sky, full of all these great materials, all these power tools, these ride-on mowers that you can get. You have in your head how that outhouse is going to look, you know, the nice heated floor, you know, the little veranda, the bifolding doors. So I'm just going off in a moment. And then you start to price everything up. But OpenStack can get you here if you're not careful. It'll work. You know, it'll be a place to store that ride-on mower, kinda. But what you really should have done was done your homework and find out what works together, what doesn't work so well. So Jonathan this morning, thankfully, covered maturity of OpenStack projects. And if you look at the list here, we include those projects that Jonathan was going on about earlier on. And these are the projects that we include in our Rackspace private cloud, if you ever come to us and use that method of deployment. The point, though, is choose your projects wisely and who you may be working with to support these. Many developers and operators see this list, come up with fantastic ideas of how they want to use their cloud. It's like a kid in a candy store. So understand that maturity. What I find is people do all this great research, and then the simple question comes to Rackspace, a little bit biased, because obviously that's where I see these customers. And they basically say, okay, well, I want to use all these great things. I've got this great project. Now, can you support them? The answer is pretty much no. We have a reference architecture and products that we trust. And support is based on lots of experience, big and small, across the globe. If we don't support it, approach with pragmatism. There are companies out there that support many of these things, but just make sure you evaluate them properly. So this is a kind of simple view of what we do support. This is the standard Rackspace reference architecture for our private cloud. I won't go into details. These slides are going to be available. But essentially, all of the software you see up there is all open source. It's very stable. It's a very scalable solution. And it comprises of a 3-way cluster. We wrap that with Galera. We stick all that behind a load balancer. What we do is we ask that you just have enterprise-grade hardware to actually run your OpenStack environment behind this. Keep it simple. Kiss. It's easy to get overwhelmed where to start with OpenStack. Look at what you're trying to achieve. Remember, and this always gets drummed into us, OpenStack is compute, storage, and networking. Make sure you do pick up a copy of the OpenStack architecture design guide to understand what additional capabilities and expertise you might need for your particular project. So I spend most of my time talking to businesses who have applications on the cusp of an automation journey. They choose OpenStack for its open source API. I actually have them telling me that it's a de facto standard. They choose it because it's flexible, and they choose it because they've been working with these tools for years. They choose somebody like Rackspace for our ability to realize these automation and DevOps goals with OpenStack. DevOps, I mentioned that word. The word. And no, I'm sorry. Whoever's playing the bingo, did you just win? Right, we know this is just another mechanism for efficiency. OpenStack is a link in this chain. For those starting out though, start out simple. You don't have to automate everything from day one to realize the benefits of OpenStack. Take each project in turn, migrate to OpenStack, and then build out your efficiency. But it's imperative to have your developers work side by side with operations as you do this. And at Rackspace, funnily enough, we can help you do this. Number 4, the OpenStack community. So, it's pretty damn obvious the OpenStack community loves you lot. The OpenStack community exists because of the successes and failures of everybody involved. We wouldn't be here today if we didn't have a great and vibrant community. It's no secret that to successfully run OpenStack, you need to get your hands a little dirty. OpenStack has a rapid and regular release cycle, and jumping on the conveyor belt can often seem daunting. But what it means to operators of it is a change in mentality, a change in risk, and a change to how you operate your infrastructure. At Rackspace, we embrace this fast pace of change on the backdrop of a very stable core platform. Our latest platform allows you to seamlessly scale and upgrade from Juno to Kilo and beyond. The community has a very big and a very active community where you can participate without even knowing a single line of Python. So raising bug reports are crucial to generate robust code that we ultimately all consume. There are lots of eyes on open source projects, and OpenStack is obviously no different. Can you go one step further and actually produce the patch? You know, even documentation is part of that process. Never ever forget that. And I'm making a point here, maybe it's a little bit close to my heart, but if you see a mistake or a typo on the so maybe you're reading some documentation and the command line doesn't work, don't just moan about it. I did that once. I got told off. So please let the community know. Raise a bug report. Do you have any questions that need asking? Not just yet. I mean about OpenStack. There's a very active mailing list, very busy Ask forum, and IRC channels that, in fact, there's lots of them for every single project and many in between, with active participants from all over the globe. Bringing it back to Snowman, okay? So glad I found this slide. Is there a feature that is preventing you from deploying OpenStack in your organization today? Then Blueprints are your friend. If you're ever lucky enough to go to the OpenStack summits, then it's not all a jolly. So don't follow my lead. People actually do some work. The developers are actually hard at work. What they do is they gather and congregate, and they do development things, but they discuss blueprints. They discuss the next version. And this is how you can contribute to OpenStack. Last one, number 5, engage the right support. So I've worked with organizations, big and small, old and young. In fact, so many old ones are now coming out of the woodwork. You know, financial institutions, which you think surely there'd be another 10 years before they jumped onto this bandwagon. But it hasn't all been a smooth journey before they approached us. Many organizations, and I've been there myself before I joined Rackspace, many organizations start off on their own. As they do, you're very intelligent people. You start to deploy this. You start to try and go further and further into the OpenStack world, but you suddenly get out of your depth. And then you choose a vendor, and sometimes those vendors just leave you with a phone number to call. There's lots of people you can speak to today, and I really do implore that you do speak to many of the different people today if you are looking to deploy OpenStack. All I ask is you choose the right one. But no, seriously, understand how they can help you. Okay, understand. I say all of the vendors out there all have different ways to support you. They all have different abilities. We have some good freebies as well. But it is crucial that we have the right partnership in place. I say we're not just a number to call at Rackspace. We go in and make sure we understand the business drivers, we understand the long-term strategies. Basically, we're an extension of your team. And that was the whirlwind tour of the 5 things I wanted you to take away the next time you're successful when deploying OpenStack. So that would be the people. That's C word, and if you're English, not that one. Be realistic, embrace the community, and enlist the right support that works for you. And I was on time, wasn't I? Look at that. Thank you. So are there any questions? I mean, that was a very high-level talk of, making sure that you go away from here, you're successful with OpenStack. So fire away. Or enjoy the sunshine. So from that point of view, please repeat the question. So what Mesh asked was, how does Rackspace evaluate the projects, to be included in the next release? To be really honest, so a lot of that is actually driven by user demand. So it's when our customers, start to generate a lot more interest around the particular project, in which case we do have spikes in our development that will go away and evaluate that particular usefulness in the project. Yes? Yep. So this is a very interesting question, because with the Kilo release, and Jonathan touched on this earlier in the opening keynotes. From the Kilo release, actually it started a little bit in the Juno release. There's a feature called Federation. So it allows you to now have a notion where you deploy your highly available OpenStack clusters, and you can authenticate, say, within your local keystone, your local environment, and then you can use that authentication with a federated cloud. So that would be one way of doing that. Now, in terms of particular regions, in that kind of model, you will end up with having some kind of mechanism of syncing the databases behind the scenes. There's a number of ways to do this. Yeah. If you're completely isolated, then you've got 2 completely different regions.
Yes, but still, if I need to control instances,
yeah.
They're isolated as computing resources, but not isolated as my site.
So if you're talking about yeah.
It's like between two sites.
It is. So yeah. So at this point, this is the reason why you get your operations staff to be working with your application developers, because at that point actually starts to talk about how your app actually behaves above the stack. So there's a world where you can actually think of, okay, this is my site, and I've got an application running one data center and another, and then you can control that through maybe BGP, but possibly DNS, some global DNS, but you can still operate them as 2 separate clouds. But you can actually bring that further down. So actually say you can have federation between them, or you can replicate between these different endpoints. There are a number of ways. It's not something which OpenStack gives you out the box. It's something you design as the architecture. Have a look at the architecture design guide. It covers multiple regions in that. So I work in the ProServe team. I'll have a chat with you later. Are we done? Right, thank you very much, everybody.